Hey everybody, how's everybody doing today? Welcome to my Sunday live stream where we talk about photography and also have an open Q&A about Olympus cameras or any kind of photography in general. I'll do my best to help you. And also I'd like to just catch up on what everybody's been doing this week, what I've been doing this week since the last stream, and talk about what I've been doing. I'm really sorry I started the stream an hour late today. I went out with the photo club this morning on a normal photo walk, and the photo walk ended like a little around 9:30ish or so, and like 2 hours before the stream is supposed to start. So we went to have breakfast, and they were just understaffed basically, and it took over an hour to get my food. Oh, is it jerky? Still no video. Hold on. How about now? Can everybody see me now? I'm here. You guys can hear me, but can you see me now? All right, good. Sorry. Yeah, sometimes I have to refresh the browser for it to kind of come up. But like I was saying, I'm sorry I was so late today. It just the restaurant took over an hour to get the food, and then it took another half hour to get out of there. So and then when I got back, I could have started about 30 minutes ago, but I need a little time to kind of relax, change my shirt, and get my thoughts together about what I might talk about today. Because like most streams, usually I'm just walking in the door, turn the camera on, sit down, and just start talking. I just don't have like Jimmy Chang always has some subject or topic they're going to talk about. And yeah, we're lucky I can go to restaurants, isn't that right? Yeah, the photo walk today, Stephen, was not bad. I didn't get a chance to walk all the way out to the end of the boardwalk, but we went to Bellhaven Court or Bellhaven Dyke Marsh Wildlife thing. And, I have a vlog that I did last week on Bellhaven. So we went back there again today. So I didn't vlog today. I have vlogged twice this week, though. Actually 3 times, but I didn't post 2 of them because, oh my God, Ellie. I brought Ellie with me on the other 2 vlogs that I tried to do. And all the pictures were just awful. They were terrible. So the only thing I posted on Instagram were a couple of pictures of her that were halfway decent, and one other picture of some sticks in the water. But there's about 100 images there that were just all total shit, to be honest. Because I just couldn't concentrate with her that day. Because it was the first time I'd gone to that park with her. I hadn't been to that park in about 5 years. And she went nuts. She was so excited to be at a new place, I guess. And there was all kinds of critters running around for her to chase after. And again, I really have to get, I've been saying this for 4 years now, but I really have to train her to walk on a leash properly because it's hazardous to me and the wildlife. Anyhow, let's see. System Nature, good to see you. Hi, nice to be back on chat. Oh, you went on a 3-day wildlife photo trip. That's awesome. Hi, Peter. How are you? Hi, Roberto. Good to see you. And Anne is here. Luez is here from Brazil. Music Sound Gear. Awesome. Annette, good to see you. From Sweden. Nice. And Tony B and Scott, lots of people here. So that's awesome. I'm so glad you guys could come back an hour later and be here today. So this week I've been really busy. Like I said, I vlogged. I did 3 vlogs or 3 photo walks, not counting today. Today is the 4th photo walk I did this week, but I can only post 1. Marco, your dog's like that? Yeah, nothing slows Ellie down. So she tried to kill a turtle. She was jumping after some toads off a cliff. Not a cliff, but it was a very narrow pier with no fencing, and it's about a 4 or 5 foot drop off the pier into the swamp. And there was frogs and cicadas everywhere, and she just, I mean, she kept trying to leap towards them off the pier to go get them, and I'm like, no, no. So and it was, oh my God, I should show you some of the crap pictures I got. Oh my God, they were so bad. Let me see if I can. Do I have a mouse? They were so bad. Let's see. It's button number. I have no idea. Button number 2, I guess. So here are 4 pictures out of I don't know how many. That number there, 651, is a little deceiving. But this is the only one that was semi okay. Basically, these were just a tree that is floating in the water with the roots sticking up. And I just thought it was kind of interesting the way the roots were kind of reaching out for the sun. Like it was still grasping for life somehow. And I just thought this is where I thought about, because I know Marco's asked about this before. How does a picture tell a story, right? And I've been thinking about that a lot ever since he asked me that question, right? You take a picture, and my answer, I think I gave Marco at the time, was some pictures just don't have a story. Sometimes just about patterns and light and things like that. And journalistic type photography always has some kind of story, right? Where there's a lot of drama, action, riots, whatever journalistic photography they take pictures of. Usually the story is just whatever's in the picture, and there's usually not much attention paid to composition and lighting and all of that, because the story can be so powerful. But a picture like this, it's like, okay, what story is this picture trying to tell? And when I looked at it, that was basically the story that came to my mind, was the roots reaching out for life. Like there's still some life in this tree, even though it's already dead and floating in the water. It still acts like it's clinging to life. And I posted this on my Instagram, and I asked people, what did you think what kind of story does this image invoke for you, right? And there were some good answers there. Like one person saw Loch Ness Monster, which I kind of see that off to the right. And someone else was saying it looks like dogs jumping in the water, all kinds of things, right? So that's what sometimes the story is really about, how you interpret what you see, right? It's not always so obvious like a journalistic type photo. And you could look at a dot on a wall, and that dot on the wall could tell you a story, right? About maybe being lonely, or the emptiness, or feeling singled out. There could be all kinds of ways that everybody would interpret that image. And this is, so every photo you take doesn't necessarily have a story, the same story for everybody that looks at it. Everybody can look at an image and they have their own story about what they think that image is. And that's kind of the realization I came to since Marco asked me that question a few weeks ago. And there's a few videos online that I need to watch that talk about storytelling and photos. So I'm going to watch those and see if my thoughts match what they did, or are they totally different. Because a lot of times there's, before I publish a video, or not even necessarily have to publish a video, but before I look at what others say about a particular subject or topic, I like to come to my own analysis, right, and figure out what do I think the answer is, or what is my analysis of the subject, and my thoughts about it before I look at other people's thoughts. And then when I watch other people, you know, it's either we all think alike and have the same message, or maybe we have very different perspectives. And that's why I never feel like I'm ever in competition with any of my peers here on YouTube, because we all have our own voice, right? To tell our story, our message in our own way. And our photography can be the same, right? It can tell its story or have a message uh, in its own unique way for everybody. So I don't know if I articulated that too well, but I feel like there's no one answer, right? Which makes sense, right? Like you could tell 10 photographers to look at a picture and they'll give you 10 different answers about what that picture is about, possibly. So anyway, Marco, so I did give your question some more thought since then, even though you seem pretty content with what I said last time. But sometimes the viewers here, you guys, will bring up thoughts, ideas, questions that I blurt out whatever answer best I can of what I'm thinking at the time. But sometimes they require a lot more thought, right? Because I don't have 30, 40 years of experience, right, to draw on to help you with or give the best qualified answer, right? Because honestly, I've only really been shooting about 9 years now, since about 2012, with any serious thought to it, right? And, you know, when I started, I had no idea what aperture was, shutter speed, you know, all of that was just, weird science to me. And it took some time for me to get through all of that and really understand what all the settings are. And that's what a lot of, I think, beginning photographers, they need to take the time and commit themselves to learning the fundamentals of photography if they really want to improve, right? I mean, some people, they buy, cameras because of all the marketing hype about how great the images are, but and they buy on specs or whatever the marketing message is from the camera company. People will buy a camera on that. And I'm not talking about people like us, real enthusiasts that, understand what the difference between hype and actual improvements in camera technology, right? But the general beginning, the general consumer market, they've never touched a camera before, but they want to buy a camera because they have an interest in photography. And everything has to be so instant, right? We've been in this like instant gratification type society for many years now, where we buy something and it just needs to work right away. And photography is not like that. Photography is a lifetime skill. You never stop learning. And unless you're committed to it or understand that there needs to be a commitment, because maybe you don't even understand that photography requires some commitment, that the gear is really irrelevant when it comes to photography. And I've said that before to people that, they ask me about different cameras, all these rumors going around, is this camera going to be relevant, in 5 years? And I'm like, doesn't matter if the camera's relevant or not. The question is, are you going to be relevant, right? In photography, are you going to make a difference? Not the camera. Because once you've developed your skill set and your style and really have a passion for it or some enthusiasm into it, in 5 years, you can be a very relevant, predominant, or dominant, let's just say a relevant photographer in the future in 5 years. And that's what I always try to tell people now when they ask me about gear, particularly if this gear is going to be relevant. And, the answer is the gear is irrelevant. You have to be relevant in photography. Lewis sees seahorses. Let's see what else people are saying. Where's my mouse? I'm so confused sometimes. Leon is here. Hey, Leon. Oh, I'm glad you're here. Hold on. You have some. Let me see. There's a way I can show this. Trust the breakfast was nice. Breakfast was actually pretty decent. It was decently priced. And, the food was decent. It just took forever to get it. It took over an hour. Yes, and anyway, you saw me testing DxO Prime for yourself, and your first response were very good. Any thoughts? Yes. Okay, so before I get to DxO Prime, I'll talk about DxO Prime in a minute. Because you had asked me about my camera bag from one of my vlogs. Because I know that you love this one. This is the one I usually take with me, right? Is my Swiss gear. And I have a video review on this. Yeah, I don't think you can get it anymore. But I love this bag. But you were asking me about this other bag I had in my video. And it was this bag, and it's really the perfect size. You know, I can hold an EM10 or EM1 and 2 lenses, and then a few batteries here in the front pouch. I paid $15 for this bag, and you know, it's nowhere near the quality of my Swiss bag, which I forget what I paid, but anyway, it's nowhere near the quality of that. But you know, it has the standard buckle in the front, right? The problem with this bag, and I don't recommend this bag to anybody, is when you pick the bag up, look at this big gap in here. You know, there's a big gap and stuff can fall out real easy. And this strap, even though I tighten it, it just loosens up so easily. And then this is really loose. So when I take this bag out, I rarely do, I make sure I don't have any small loose items inside here, only the larger things that I would have to really, like, you know, rustle the bag for things to fall out. But anyway, for 15 bucks, I can't complain, right? But I don't recommend anybody get this bag. I mean, the plastic clips here are kind of cheap, and you know, if it rains, there's definitely going to water. It's going to get in here very easily. So yeah, this is and this is made by Caden. So if you see this bag from Caden, I don't recommend you get it. But it is a really good size. So if you find this bag on Amazon or somewhere, look at the dimensions of this bag. The dimensions are perfect, but the design is very bad. Like I said, it has a very weak buckle, has a lot of gaps, and so I use it once in a while, but usually I just take my Swiss bag. Now, for DxO Prime. Okay, so let me get to DxO Prime. I see another comment here. From Terry, says, I'm still unimpressed with Deep Prime, but still trying. Yeah, there is not much. Okay, so I'm still doing my own analysis and comparisons and trying different shots. Right now, I'm primarily working with images that I took before, right? Some old images. So let me see if I can pull up a couple, and I'll talk about it. And I'll do a full-on video review of DxO Prime and even DxO Photolab 4, which has some advantages over just DxO Prime, because Photolab 4 has the DxO Prime built into it, but it gives you a little more control over the processing than DxO Prime by itself. And it's about $60 more to get it with DxO Photolab. And my gut feeling is it's worth it to spend an extra 60 bucks. Right now, the price, it's like 90 bucks right now for DxO Prime, and 150 bucks for the Photolab. And let me get my, I mean, I am Johnny come lately. I think there's about 100 videos on DxO Prime right now already, but most of them are praising it to no end, right? Or not really. I don't know. I'm not happy with the reviews I've seen so far by anyone when I'm trying to make a decision before I drop 90, 150 bucks on something. But here's a link in the chat. I just posted a link to my affiliate link that you can download a free 30-day trial. And if you buy it, then I'll make like 10% or something. But irregardless of that, the point is, you have to download and try it for yourself. Now, let me show you the kind of images that I processed some and the kind of results I got. Some I was extremely happy with. Others, I was like, I see where the challenge is when doing this kind of thing. Because if for those of you not familiar with DxO Prime, it's basically a raw processing software that will take your raw images, process them to take the noise out, and bring the detail in, so that and then it regenerates another raw image to that you can start to process from there, like you would any other image. And then John says it's worth it to get the Photolab 4 Elite with the Prime built in. Yeah, I'm starting to lean that way myself. Okay, let me go to my screen here and pull up some stuff. And Johan, there's a lot of you have tried this already, right? Like I said, I'm Johnny come lately, because I was now, I tried it like a year ago. I don't know if it was Topaz or DxO, but I tried one of these raw processing denoising things, and I was not impressed at all. I was like, this is a waste of $90 or $100, right? But now I would not hesitate to recommend this if you try it for yourself first. I highly recommend you try it for yourself, versus if you asked me a year ago, I would have said, don't waste your time. You can try it, but that'll be a couple hours of your life you won't get back. But this now I'm saying you should try it. All right, let me, oops. I think this button, let me get rid of this message. But what is Johan saying? I did try on DxO Pure Raw. I found it too harsh for raw files. And unfortunately, the ORF from E1, E3 sensors are not supported. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't try it on one of my... As a matter of fact, I got an E500 file right here. Let's try this one. I mean, this is an ISO 200 image, so it's not going to make much difference. But what's the image name? Number 570. P101 570. So it's this one here. That's the JPEG. Where's the raw? Oh. P101 570. All right, so I'm going to pull up DxO Prime. Where is it? Yeah, DxO Pure Raw. I'm sorry, DxO Pure Raw. Okay, music. We'll see you later. Gonna watch the Indy 500s, huh? That's cool. So I'm still running a demo. Like I haven't quite decided between Photolab 4 and just getting the plugin. All right, so I'm going to drag in. Here's an E500. Ah, look at that. You're right. E500 doesn't work. Let me try it. I mean, it acted like it tried to process it. What's the error? No, it's not. Yeah, it's not working. It's kind of stuck. Couldn't be processed as processing error occurred. Okay, wow. All right, so be it. Let's see, DxO. All right, so here's the EM. What is this? My EM1 Mark III at 25,000 ISO, and then it renamed the file DxO Prime. So let's compare this to the original. So I'll go to the folder. I think this is the raw. Yeah, so there's the original. Make sure I didn't do any processing to it. Yeah, it looks, yeah, no processing done. All right. So this was some test shots that I did when I was comparing ISO performance between different cameras. And if we punch in the ISO, oh, that's ISO 12,000. Hold on. I grabbed the wrong one. Is it this one? Yeah, this one and this one. So there's the ISO 25,000 EM1 Mark III, right? And you can see there's just a ton of noise. Let me zoom in 200% because we're on a stream. But this is 236%. And if I go over here to the Olympus, when you punch in this close, you can see that clearly it got rid of all of the color noise, which are those different color speckles, and it also got rid of most of the luminance noise, but not without looking like it tried to reduce the luminance noise, right? It definitely, you can tell that there's a little bit of softening here. And normally for subjects like this, where they're inanimate objects, you know, these are prime candidates for using DxO Prime on images that are not actually human faces. Because you know what happens when you start denoising a human face, right, is their face starts to look like plastic or glassy, right, very fake. When you over-process high ISO images with people's faces in them. Because our human eye is very, very sensitive to other human faces. And we can spot the most minute differences in a person's face than any other thing that we take pictures of. So for a subject like this, like, let's look at this. This is a good example of, let me back off a little bit. Now, all of this detail around the focus ring of the camera has been lost, a lot of the detail, because when you go over to DxO Prime, you can see that it's very hard to separate the body of the camera from the grip, the focus ring of the lens. And I mean, when I'm looking at it on the stream here, it looks okay, but when I'm looking at it on my screen, the distinguishing between the focusing ring and the camera body is almost gone. There's no there's no separation there. And it's not DxO's fault. It's because we lost a lot of detail in the original image. But you can see, like, on the text and other areas, it did a really good job cleaning all this up. But this is where the artificial intelligence, is doing the best it can to make this look as good as possible. But I would say really very high ISO images like 25,000, don't plan on saving a lot of detail. They need to be for images that are not, where you're not going to be pixel peeping to this level. But images under 6400, ISO 6400, I found even on my face to be very good. So I don't know if that's here. Let me go back to this. Pretty sure my face was in here. I took it with my Pen F. So it was the Pen F at ISO 6400. Let's see. Oh, why isn't it here? Oh, because I didn't take it this. No, I thought it was oh my God, was it 2 years ago? Let me try 2019. Yeah, here we go. So that's the original, and I think this is the DxO Prime. Oh, hey, Thomas. Sorry you have to go. All right, so let's talk. I was just catching up on the chat. So this is my Pen F at ISO 6400, and we have DxO Prime here on the left. But let's go ahead and punch in on this one. And I'm at 118. Let's go to, I don't know. I don't really want to go 200%. That's too much. But all right, let's look at it at so I haven't done any processing to this other than, you know, going through DxO Prime. But what really impressed me was, like, if you look at my eyebrows, you know, the detail it brought back in the hair versus, you know, the original raw image is really amazing. And I really tried with Lightroom to try to bring this detail back myself. And then you know, after I did the best I can in Lightroom, I exported it to Photoshop, and then I tried doing some high pass filters and doing layers to try to bring back some detail. I could not even get close to what this software could do. So I would say, you know, and if you look at my face, it doesn't look plasticky or, you know, fake in any way. It looks totally natural. Now, granted, there's red light on my face, but for the most part, I think at ISO 6400 and below, DxO Prime is still very good for just human faces. I think above that, you're going to start to run into issues where people are going to start to see or be able to tell that there was too much image processing happening with that person's face. And if you're a professional, you're not going to make a living doing things if your images look fake, right? You know, I think for just enthusiasts, not even enthusiasts, I think for people that are very casual about photography, yeah, use DxO Prime on anything you want. But those kind of people generally are not looking for DxO Prime, right? They're just casual photographers. They could care less how good or bad their images are. They just want to capture the moment. But as an enthusiast or professional, I would say keep your ISOs below 6400, and DxO Prime is going to do a fine job. And let's see. Let me just see what the comments are. Okay, nothing. Nothing there, but Plato says it's impressive, and it is pretty impressive. Like, let's go over here to this glass jar. The other thing you want to look at, never mind the bottle, there's a little motion blur there, but the way it renders the background, it's really good at cleaning up the background noise in the bokeh areas, right? In the shallow depth of field areas. I mean, it's just like, look at my hairline here and my hat. I mean, it's pretty amazing. Like, you could see some of the threads here. But when looking at the background, this is the challenge when you do global adjustments for noise reduction in Lightroom or Photoshop, is usually you drag the problem into the bokeh area in the background. So what's really good about DxO Prime is it's very good at distinguishing between what's in focus, what's not in focus, and then decides what it's going to sharpen versus what it's not going to try to sharpen. So clearly it did not try to sharpen the background, but it did go out of its way to sharpen the foreground, like my hairline and everything, right? But it didn't waste any time back here. All it did in the background was smooth it out and get rid of all the chroma and lumen noise. No problem. Now you can do this in Photoshop with a brush, but you'll be there all freaking day, you know, on regular images. Now, if you plan to shoot a certain way where you're going to be processing the background, then you'll shoot in a way that it makes it easy to cut out the subject versus the background, yada yada. But you know, for enthusiasts where we're taking pictures everywhere, anytime, all the time, 24/7, we have a lot of images like this where the background is there, it's blurred out, but you know, when we try to clean it up ourselves manually using global noise reduction and sharpening, it's a problem. So let me show you what I mean. So here's the original raw image. So what I can do is I can go to the noise, and I think I'm pretty good at fixing this up, but I'm gonna get rid of the color noise first. So that's a big improvement right there. And then I'm gonna add some sharpening. Pull back this slider and mask out areas I don't need to sharpen, like so. And this is a tough image. Let me increase the radius a little bit less here, and then add a little bit of noise reduction. See if I can do this. I'm just doing this real quick. And then let me add some contrast or clarity, texture, a little bit of clarity, just tiny bit of dehaze. No, that's making it look. All right, so that's about 90% of what I can do in Photoshop. Now, if we compare these two images, let that render. Come on. Is it not going to render? Let's do full screen. Sometimes you gotta fiddle with it to get it to render. There we go. All right, so here on the left is my best effort using Lightroom versus oh wait, that's the JPEG. Hold on. This one. Here we go. So on the left is my best effort using Photoshop versus look at how much better DxO Prime still is. Hopefully this is coming through. But like I said, the problem is with Lightroom, the sharpening and everything else is getting applied to the background as well. It's not cleaning that. I'm not able to clean that up separately without actually going in with a brush and you know, just manually doing it, right, with a brush, something like this, and going around, which I've done in the past, right? But anyhow, that is that is my initial first impressions of DxO Prime. Is it's pretty impressive. I just can't believe what it's been able to do with my images. I have a few other images that I've been working on, like, oh my God, I'll show you one more, which is really amazing. Because I have a Panasonic S5, right, which is a full frame camera, and it goes up to 200,000 ISO. And is it here? No. Maybe. Let me search it this way. DCS5, 200,000 ISO. Here we go. So this is the Prime, and where's the original RAW? DxO Deep Prime. Here we go. Oops. All right, so here I am at 200,000 ISO, 204,800 with my Panasonic. And the only light in the room was coming from my little, well, I guess maybe the TV set because it's pretty well even out. But let me punch in here. Now, on Ellie's head here, there's a little bit of motion blur at 1/25th of a second. So let's go to, so this is not a great example because there's motion blur happening here. But if we go to the bed where there's no motion blur, let me get to a point of focus. I mean, it's pretty freaking amazing how much detail it was able to pull out. I just can't believe my eyes. You know, there is no way I could do this on my own in Lightroom or Photoshop. Just no way. And then let's see, do I have anything else here? What is this? This is this one and this one. So here's the original raw image on the left and DxO Prime on the right at ISO 204,000. I mean, it's just shocking. Look at the difference. I mean, you can almost see the lettering engraved on these little nameplates here. Almost, not quite, but you can tell there's lettering there. It's just shocking to me. So I would say you could almost shoot at ISO 200,000 with the Panasonic anyway and get usable images. It just blew my mind when I saw that. So let me do a shameless affiliate link real quick again. So there's a shameless plug for my affiliate link. But you can download a free trial like I did and then decide. But I would download Photolab 4 and download DxO Prime and use them separately. Photolab 4 has some other workflow advantages as well. It works as a plugin directly to Lightroom, so you can just click on an image and process it, versus DxO Prime, you have to find the file, drag it in, drag and drop it. So the workflow is not quite as smooth as it is in Photolab 4. So there's a couple advantages I'm finding in Photolab 4 for just this one feature. Now, Photolab 4 has a billion other things for photo editing. So I think for an extra $60, it's worth it. So like I said, here's my affiliate link. Shameless plug, but definitely download both of them. And then if you're happy with what DxO Prime can do, you know, you can save $60. You don't need any other photo. You really don't need the photo editing part of Photolab 4 if you have Lightroom or some other editing software you like. But if you're using like if you don't really have a photo editing software, you've been thinking about upgrading your photo editing software, there's a lot of reasons to spend the extra $60 and get the Photolab 4. So I'm still working on that software because I have to relearn all of the sliders and where everything is before I really talk about Photolab 4 any more than that. And then they have additional plugins like film packs, which are kind of interesting. And of course, they have the Nick effects, which is a separate $100. I mean, that crap adds up. When you start tacking things on, it gets expensive. And if you like that kind of stuff, maybe it's worth it. But I'm a little bit leery of the film pack. I'm not finding it's not appealing to me as much as the DxO Prime is, right? The noise reduction. Yeah, Terry, keep trying. What I'm going to do, Terry, is I'm actually going to do a photo editing live stream next week. I'm going to try. Once I build up my skill set with DxO Prime and Photolab 4. But I want to do a photo editing live stream using Photolab 4. So you can send images to me that you're struggling with on your own and see if I can get any better results, right? Because sometimes it just takes literally just a different set of eyes to process an image, right? And say, okay, this is, you just have to look at it this way. Let's see. How are we doing on the, have I tried Topaz denoise? I have not. I did download the Topaz AI, and I did see one comparison between the most recent Topaz denoise and Topaz and DxO Prime. And the main difference between the two, just by default, was that DxO Prime reduced the noise more, but then lost more detail, whereas Topaz denoise retained more detail, but it had a little more noise, right? And that's where I think if you get Photolab 4 from DxO, you can adjust that parameter. But I haven't tried Topaz AI. The other, I did get some feedback from one of my viewers that they used Topaz denoise, and they said that they found on human faces the DxO Prime was better than Topaz denoise. So I'm gonna I'm gonna download it and try it and compare and see if there really is much difference. But the comparisons that I've seen online, the two are so close that it's, I don't know, it's not, I don't think you can go wrong either way, to be honest. I think DxO combined with Photolab 4 is a better value overall than, say, just getting either of the plugins alone. But I'm not that familiar with the Topaz products yet, so I'm going to hold out judgment on that until I download and try it for myself. So, and then Stephen Long says, I tried Darktable and thought it very good. Yeah, I tried Darktable. I'm struggling. Honestly, there was a few images that I processed using Darktable that I thought were amazing. Very rich, vibrant colors, right? I was like so impressed, and I was having trouble duplicating that look in Lightroom and Workspace. And I'm like, I would use it just for that one thing, right? To get the colors I was able to get out of it. But I was struggling with so many different settings and sliders on that software that ultimately it just, the learning curve to figure out how to use everything to convert over to that just wasn't worth it to me to get that one thing. But I'll try it again. Why not? When I have some time, I'll look at it again. I did seriously consider Darktable for a couple of weeks, and I tried processing various images with it, and the results were awesome when the images were very good to begin with. But when the images started to deteriorate, that's where, and it's not the software's fault, but that's where my skill set was not able to edit the images in a satisfactory way. And that's where the learning curve comes in, right? Because I know Darktable can do a better job than what I was doing with it. But I have this learning curve. I have to learn how to use Darktable to a degree to be able to process the more difficult images. And that's where I stopped, because I was like, I'm happy with what I can do in Lightroom. I just can't go into another software and start learning everything all over. It's just too much sometimes, right? Because I got all these cameras I mess with, and then I got all these different softwares: Photoshop, Lightroom, Workspace. Those alone are pretty heavy hitters in terms of learning curve, learning to use those, and tacking on another one. And I'm in the position that I've already subscribed to Lightroom, so my motivation to find something else is pretty minimal. But all I can say is I did really like Darktable on the few images that were already pretty clean, but the colors and the way I was able to get the kind of look out of it, I haven't been able to reproduce. But it wasn't enough for me to take that leap to learn more about Darktable. Okay, let's see. Barry's taken off. Okay, Barry, we'll see. Raw therapy. Yeah, raw therapy is very popular. And DeMorgan says, I find artifacts in Topaz, although the new update a couple of weeks ago is much better. Yes. It's definitely improved since a year ago when I tried it the first time. I know that. And Mike is heading out. Okay. Oh, thank you, Mike. You're very kind. I do have a new link down here, robtrek.com/support. So if you guys want to support the channel, that's the best way to do it. You don't need a PayPal account or anything like that. It goes through PayPal, but you don't need a PayPal account, which I know has been a barrier for a lot of you. And I appreciate you asking, how can I donate without using PayPal? Because I didn't realize you had to have PayPal to donate using the links over here, right? What is it, to buy me a coffee and all that? It didn't work for everybody, but the one down below should work for everybody that wants to. And Ed De La Riz says 81 versus 30. Indeed. Do the thumb. Oh, thank you. Oh, is there 81 people here? Wow. I'm having a good day on a stream. Usually it's like around 50, 60 people. It starts, but like I said, it doesn't matter how many people are here. What's important is you guys are interacting and chatting, right? Either with me or amongst yourselves. Either way is I think what live stream should be, right? Is about that interaction and communication, community, all that good stuff. Okay, let me scroll up and see if I missed any questions. And I'm going to get rid of this stupid pin. Let's see. It says here, Stephen Long says, I got Nik Effects when it was an offer as I wanted it for doing mono image. Yeah, Nik Effects is cool. And I have not tried Topaz Denoise. Yeah, Plato's talking about, he saw an exhibition of Family of Man in Luxembourg, and the photos were blurry, not well exposed, but man, they told a story, and literally I choked up seeing them. Isn't that true? It's amazing, right? Some photos just, really draw out some emotion sometimes. Luxembourg, I think I saw that there's some series on Amazon that I was watching that was about these detectives in Luxembourg. And I think it was The Patriot. It's a two season series. It's just two seasons only, and they, it was an awesome little. If you're into like spy stuff, it was a really good show. Scott Mumford says, may come across as a dumb question, but how do you find out how much space is left on your SD cards? Was out doing time lapse yesterday, and the camera told both. Usually in the bottom right of the live view screen, it'll tell you how many pictures you can take. And then as you start taking pictures, that number will count down. And it's pretty accurate. So see if I can show you. Nope. Nope. Dang it. This one. Let me hide this. So right now I'm in movie mode. So the bottom right is telling me that this memory card, I can record 5 hours and 21 minutes using full HD superfine 30p. And when I go into photo mode, okay, right now it's telling me I can do 4,700. Oh, this, hold on, I got to rearrange the screen a little bit. Where is OBS here? Yeah, 4,726 photos or 5 hours and 21 minutes of video. So right down there in the bottom right. And I don't know if this card's empty, but let me format. Oh, on this camera, it's up here. Oh, so this was a formatted card, 4,730. So it's about the same. But that's how you tell. And then when you start taking photos, that number should count down. So you need to check that before you start a time lapse, basically. Okay, and Rob Trek, is a 10/2 a good choice for interior photography? So I assume you mean 10mm f2. It's a little bit tight. I think, and if you're very good, right? If there's small rooms, like, you know, let's say the room is less than 3 meters by 3 meters, or, well, you're in California, so if it's like a 9 by 9 foot room, 10mm is too tight. You're gonna have a hard time, because a lot of times when you're in a room, you can't get all the way back into the corner of the room because there's either furniture or lamps or some obstruction, so that you can't get to the very back corner of the room. If you can, 10mm might work in small rooms. Another good example is like in bathrooms. Bathrooms are very small usually, and 10mm is a little bit tight for small rooms. So I use my 8mm fisheye lens because, you know, it gives me a full 180 degrees vertically or diagonally. That's really much wider than I need 90% of the time. However, when I shoot wider than I need, it allows me to crop in and reframe and do perspective corrections, like any kind of distortions, like keystoning. It allows me to make all these corrections to the geometry of the room and still have enough border space for me to frame it properly. If you're shooting at 10mm in smaller rooms, you may not be able to get wide enough if there's any kind of perspective distortions. So most real estate photographers use an 8mm equivalent, right? I'm sorry, 8mm or wider. So it'd be a 16mm full frame lens is the preferred choice for real estate photography. Some get away with tighter lenses like your 10mm, which is a 20mm equivalent. But I would say 8mm is the ideal focal length. The 7-14 Panasonic that I use is wide enough. 7mm rectilinear lens. It's not a fisheye, it's a rectilinear. So I don't have to do the fisheye correction. But I stopped using that lens because of the purple flaring I was getting with it. So I switched over to the 8mm fisheye. You know, I have to add a step for the fisheye correction, but other than that, it's okay. But yeah, it's a little tight. It's a little tight in my opinion for smaller rooms like bathrooms and closets and patios sometimes are very small. So there's a lot of limitations. So short answer is it's not really a good choice. And let's see, what is this? Marcel, hi. Rob, send us a high ISO photo next week and let us edit it. Then use oh yeah, that's a great idea. I'll give you guys a really high ISO image to edit and see what you guys can do with it. That would be fun. I'll look at my calendar this week. I think Wednesday I'll do the photo editing live stream. It'll be Wednesday. That's what I was thinking because I have something I have to do at home at 6 o'clock my time. So I'll do it probably around 2 o'clock on Wednesday. 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Wednesday is my goal. I just have to double check my calendar, but that should be it. And John says, my EM10 Mark II is back from Olympus repair for the second time. This time the LCD ribbon cable died. Another $200. Oh my God. It's the most unreliable camera you ever owned in 50 years. Wow, that's sad. You know, my EM10 Mark II, the only thing that's really failed on it that you really can't blame me for is the eye sensor went bad. So now it doesn't automatically switch from the EVF to the live view or back and forth. I have to manually do it because the eye sensor's dead. But I've dropped that camera so many times. But other than that, it works fine. I mean, I busted the battery door off of it. So now, and then I had to use super glue to get it all back together. Fortunately, it broke in my house. I dropped it in my house. So I had all the little parts to put back together. But that has not been my experience. You know, it's been pretty reliable for me. Ed says, Luxembourg, nice country, weird language. Yes. Yeah, I was watching subtitles. So, and they spoke English most of the time with an accent. And Marco said, I was organizing my gear, trying to clean up my bags. And you have a bunch of ball heads and Arca Swiss mounts and shotgun mics and filters. Would they help the club? Absolutely. I think what I'll do is maybe in my forum, I'll add a link for just people that want to give stuff away. Then rather than make it like a buy and sell type thing, maybe just put a place for donating stuff. I'll add that because you're not the first one. There's Errol sent me a bunch of stuff that I need to give away. I tried to give some away at the photo club today, but I didn't get any bites. I'm just going through the chat now. Time is it? All right, we're good. And I see a question here. Amir is asking, how do you deal with burned 255 RGB pixels in an image? How to change it to editable color? Oh, I've never tried, so I can't even point you in the right direction. I'm gonna stretch and say Photoshop probably has a way to select pixels that are 255 value, and then you can change them. I'm pretty sure Photoshop has that ability, but I don't think a regular photo editing software like Lightroom or Olympus Workspace does. Even a lot of the other photo editors, they don't go to the pixel level, but Photoshop is almost a pixel editor. It's in some ways where you can select certain ranges and work only on that range of color. So if the color is completely white, 255, you can select that in a mask and edit it. I've never done it myself, but I know in theory, I think that's how that works. If somebody can shed some light on that in the comments section for Amir, that would be helpful, because, again, it's not something I do in my photography. You know, if something is clipped completely white, I just let it go. I don't try to fix it. But maybe you're not necessarily trying to fix a completely white pixel. You just want to change it to something else. So you're not fixing it, you're changing it, which is different, right? But yeah, I would point you to Photoshop. Oh, it looks like Tony already answered your question because you're thanking him for something. Tony B says, check out F64 YouTube channel. It may help. Okay. Yeah. There you go. And John McCormick, are you dumping your Micro Four Thirds? Did I see that? Oh, here's something from Michael. And System Natura. Let me go here. Just started using my Panasonic 818. Great results. Very sharp. And I've put a UV filter on it for protection. When used in confined indoor space, getting fisheye curves on the sides. Yeah, so that's the thing, is shoot wider than you need to, and then crop out anything that any distortions like that. I have to do that. When I shoot with my 8mm fisheye, I get wide angle distortion. I don't get that fisheye cropping so much because it gets corrected pretty well in Photoshop. But I always shoot wider than I need to and crop in those parts that I don't need. You know, you don't want to frame when you're doing like real estate photography or architectural photography, you shoot that kind of photography with the intent to post-process them. So you take the pictures with a whole different perspective. You shoot wider than you need. I mean, some can argue, you know, you're going to lose megapixels and all that, but it's better than having a messed up image that you can't fix, right? It's better just to have a few less megapixels and have an image you can fix than having an image that is very difficult to repair. But I don't have that lens, so I can't tell you my experience with that. But I can tell you with my 8mm fisheye, you know, or any super wide angle lens, even my 7-14 Panasonic, I always had to shoot wider than I needed. But I intended to crop in and post-process. And then Michael White, I think, with 8mm being ideal for real estate, are you interested in getting, hopefully soon, the 8-25 f4 Pro? Yes, I'm definitely interested in that, because getting the 8-24mm will eliminate the need for me to do that fisheye correction first. It'll be already a rectilinear lens. That would be the only reason I would consider it. And depending on the price, and if I ever get another real estate job, it's been a while. It's my fault, but I would see it. Like, if you'd asked me last year, I would have definitely bought it, because I had so many jobs. You know, I was making decent money. But this year, I've only had 3 photo jobs all year. And again, it's my fault, because I'm not trying that hard. But at the same time, that's definitely a lens I'm looking forward to. It's just going to depend on the price. If it's like in the $600-700 range, I'll get it. If it's like $1,000, I don't know. I'm going to have a hard time. And Quang. Okay, Quang. Hi, Rob. Don't macro lenses. I don't macro lens yet. What lens is good for using with extension tubes? The 40-150 f4 to 5.6, the kit lens. Brand new, they're still selling between 150 and 200. Used, you can usually get an excellent condition for about $100. That is an excellent lens to use with macro extension tubes. And you'll get great results. And If you want to get serious about macro photography, then you spend the $300 or $400 and you get the 60 millimeter macro lens. But you can use the extension tubes even with your kit lens, the 14 to 42. I think I remember I saw you today at lunch, right? You had the 12 to 40. You can use it with that as well. The 12 to 40 Pro, it'll work fine on that. Your close focusing distance is a little bit tight, but you could use that. The extension tubes work with just about any lens, but they're easiest to use on a zoom lens, because to get focus, you can just zoom in and out and then lock focus with the focus button. But that initial focus, it's much easier to do with a zoom lens. And, next time we go out, I'll show you. I can show you on my camera how I use it. I think this is the same Quang that was in the photo club this morning, right? And EJ says, my 918 won't focus past the 14 millimeter anymore. Have to restart the camera to reset the lens. Debating whether to spend 200 plus for repair or live with the limitation. I'd live with the limitation. I ain't spending 200 bucks just to fix 4 millimeters. Yeah, mainly what my assumption is, most people that buy that lens, they want it for the wide angle part anyway. If you're above 14 millimeters, you might as well use your kit lens, 14 to 42, or, you have that range covered with another lens. Not too many lenses cover 9 millimeter range, right? So yeah, definitely I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't spend the money, because like I said, you're easily covered with other lenses in the other focal lengths. But a 12 to 40 Pro lens will never be a 9 millimeter, right? It's just not possible. But the 9 to 18, the 12 to 40 definitely covers 14 to 18. So that's my advice. It's a pain swapping lenses, but for 200 bucks, I will swap all day long. And what's my experience with the XT30? It's very limited. I've had that camera for almost a year, and I've only used it 2 or 3 times. I just not a fan of the ergonomics. I like the XS10 much better, because the grip is a little bigger. The controls are a little more conventional. For me, the XT30 was to replace my X100F, which I hated that camera. I know a lot of people love that camera, but I didn't like it at all for me, because it didn't have IBIS, and that was a big problem. I can't remember all the problems I had with it, but I know IBIS was one of the big ones. And I had a few other issues to the point that I said, an XT30 would solve all of these problems for me. And it did. The XT30 solved every problem I had when I was using the X100. But now that I have the XT30, I would be surprised if I have, 1,000 clicks on it. It just after a year. So, I know the image quality is very good. It definitely, in low light, it's definitely superior to any of my Olympus cameras. And not by a little bit, significantly better in low light. And as far as like continuous autofocus and tracking, it's a train wreck. The Olympus cameras are actually much better. Like my EM1 Mark III, my EM1 Mark II. Well, no, I'd say the EM1 Mark III is significantly better than the XT30. The M1 Mark II, definitely faster, right? Definitely faster than an XT30. With the tracking ability, both of them are a train wreck. But with actually doing continuous autofocus, and you manually track with your eye using a single point or a 5-point, EM1 Mark II is way faster. EM5 Mark III, way faster than an XT30. Yeah, the buffer's a little weak on the XT30, because I tested the tracking and continuous focus ability of it, and it's just so slow. It's just brutal. It's like shooting with an EM10 Mark II or an EM5 Mark II. It just didn't didn't do any better than those cameras. And those cameras are awful with continuous autofocus. Your hit rate is pretty low. And granted, you know, with more practice with the XT30, I could probably improve that quite a bit. Versus like the M10 or the M5, I'll never get any better with those cameras than I am now with continuous autofocus and tracking and all that. So yeah, I was not impressed with that camera relative to my Olympus cameras when it comes to overall user experience and ergonomics. And that's not the camera's fault. That's just because I'm so used to Olympus. And if you're just starting out with your first camera system, if you go with Fujifilm, you will not be disappointed. No question. And you may be a Fuji fan for life. But I switched from Nikon, which I was a big Nikon fan. I switched to Olympus. I almost went with an XT10 back then. But anyway, that's a whole other story. I could have gone with Fuji or Olympus, but I ended up going with Olympus because it was just a little bit smaller camera at the time. I didn't know anything about image quality or anything back then. I just wanted a little smaller camera than my Nikon D750. And the M10 Mark II was smaller than the XT10 when you added the lenses. So I said, yeah, I'll just go with the Olympus. And that's where I am now. Had I gone Fuji at the time, who knows? I might be a Fuji fanboy right now. It's hard to say. But having both in my hands, I'm still an Olympus fan because it's just what I've been using the last 5 years. It's not because Olympus is necessarily better than the Fuji. Like I said, in a lot of ways, the Fuji is better than the Olympus when it comes to just pure image quality. I mean, the X-Trans sensor is very unique, right, in the camera industry. And the kind of looks and colors and images that you get from an X-Trans sensor is very hard to describe, or, you know, I mean, the image, when you look at Fuji images, there's a certain look to them that just is so, I don't know, very beautiful, very appealing, right? Especially when you start getting into their film simulations, and they're not simple color tweaks. I mean, they did something. They did not mess around when they made their film simulations. They're very hard to duplicate. So my experience is very biased, is all I can tell you. That I didn't like it, but I would not hesitate to recommend it to somebody that is just getting their first camera. If they ask me, should I get the EM10 or the XT30, I'm going to tell them you have to try them for yourself. You know, if you get the EM10, I can help you. If you get the XT30, I can't help you. You know, I don't know. So that's my opinion. I don't have anything bad to say about Fuji, other than a biased opinion about the ergonomics and the usability. And like I said, it's a very biased opinion because I've been shooting Olympus for 5 years, and I'm like a surgeon on that camera. I can whip around the buttons and dials on that thing like with blindfolded almost. All right. Sin says, you must come over to London and stay with us. Okay. Then we can go out and shoot with my range of lenses. Yes. If I ever go to London, I'll definitely let everybody know. I'm just not a big fan of travel, as I've said many times. Oh, okay, Quan, you have both lenses. Okay, good. Yeah, try your extension tools with that. It's easy. And I have a lot of videos on using macro extension tools with those lenses specifically. So, oh, you want to use it with your vintage lenses with an adapter. Okay, in that respect, I would say the Fuji may be a better choice. Well, I don't know. I've never adapted a lens to my Fuji, even though I have an adapter for it. I've never adapted anything to it. I wish I could say more. I should go out with some photo walks with the Fuji next time and just start to use the camera or sell the damn thing. It's just collecting. It's not collecting dust anymore. I have it in my dehumidifier box now, but I should take it out and shoot with it instead of just complaining about it. I mean, I complain about not using it more than I use it. There's something wrong with that ratio. What millimeter? 10 millimeter and 16 millimeter. Don't stack them together with those lenses. Just use one or the other. You can stack them together, but then the image quality is a little rough. But use the 10 millimeter first. If you want a little more reach and a little more working room, the 16 millimeter is good. Usually you buy them together, 10 and 16 together for like 25 bucks. And the Great Vanzini says, I'm an old Fuji Nikon guy. Just got some lowly PL2 and PL5 used. Have to say I'm impressed with the colors right out of the box. Just quick snaps, but still. Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah, I mean, I have a few vlogs comparing Olympus EM10 or PL8 directly against my Fujifilm X100 and XT30. But long story short, there's not that much difference. The colors look great out of both cameras. You know, they're just most cameras will produce a great image, straight out of camera type images. You'll be fine. Really, you just have to buy the camera that speaks to you the most. You know, does the XT30 or Nikon or Canon, when you hold it in your hands, do the dials and the controls make sense to you? Does the look of the camera inspire you to want to learn more and go out and shoot more? Does the way the menus work, work with your brain and the way that you think? Is it more intuitive to you than, say, another brand? Because I can tell you, Olympus, it's got to be, down there with some of the least intuitive menu systems, in the camera world. And I would put Sony below that. So I would say Sony's probably still the worst. I haven't tried their new ones, but my Sony NEX that I have, worst menu system ever. Olympus is not far behind that, but it's better. Then I would go Nikon. Then I would say Fuji has a very good menu system. And then better than that, and this is for my brain, the way my brain works when I'm looking at the menu. It doesn't mean it's your choices may go in a different order. Then after that would be, did I say Panasonic? Anyway, after Canon, Panasonic is better than Canon. And then, yeah, Panasonic, I think, has the best menu system overall. So I would say Sony's the worst, then Olympus, then Fuji, then Canon, then definitely Panasonic's the best. And Nikon is somewhere down there with Olympus. Olympus and Nikon are about tied for worst menu system ever, in my opinion. And what's going to happen with Olympus remains to be seen. I mean, your guess is as good as mine. I'm very content with the cameras I have now. So if they come out with anything, it's only better for all of us, or for me. If they come out with nothing, I'll be fine. In 4 or 5 years, I'll buy another camera. It's okay, right? If Olympus doesn't make any more cameras, it's okay. Just buy something else in 4 or 5 years. It's not the end of the world, right? And that's all I can say. But if they do come out with some stuff, then it's all the better for me, because assuming it's a good camera, if they come out with and I would assume it is going to be, they're going to come out with better cameras. But all things point to Olympus continuing in the tradition that the current user base wants it to go. That's the indications. But all of these indications are coming from public interviews and press releases from Olympus themselves. And you have to take all of that with a grain of salt. It's better than not hearing anything, but you have to judge what you have to judge a company by its actions as well, right? So number one action would be releasing new cameras and lenses this year. That would be the best thing they could do, if they're any good. I mean, so let me caveat that. Release good lenses and cameras this year, and you'll instill a lot of confidence. The second thing that they're doing is they're doing a lot of online video training and webinars and things like that. That's another very positive action. The third thing they've done is they've reinstated some of their Olympus visionaries, like Peter. Oh, I'm not sure if Peter's decided to or not. I can't remember. But I know Robin and Jimmy Chang definitely are back on board with Olympus. Probably Peter too. I may have missed the video if he did join again. I know he was off for a little while, so he may be back now. So that's the third thing they've done. So there's 3 actions. There's 2 out of 3 actions that they have shown that they have a commitment to continue, so, continue Olympus in the tradition that the user base wants it to. We're still waiting for cameras and lenses, right? That would be the number one thing. The other 2 are very positive indicators, but they don't mean a damn thing unless they come out with a new camera and lens, right? So that's what I feel about what's going on with Olympus. And Kwang says the weight of lens is likely the key to buy Micro Four Thirds, and the features is best. Live comp bracket keys, yes. Also flip screen, yes. Lots of good features on the Olympus cameras for a long time. A lot of other companies are coming up, catching up, and adding these things to their cameras, but Olympus was first on a lot of these things. And Christine says the color characteristics are complicated. I found love Olympus, Nikon, Fuji, but they are different. Yes. Put lens manufacturers in, and well, not always manageable with Photoshop, I found either. I'm not sure what you mean by not manageable. If you're talking about trying to manage the colors, yeah, I understand. If you're trying to, especially if you're trying to color match systems in product photography, where that's very critical, that could be a problem. If you're talking about compatibility, like the E500 doesn't work with DxO Prime, for example, that's a whole other issue. That's a lot to keep up with, right, by the software companies. But yeah, the colors are different. Nikon is definitely warmer than any of the other cameras I have. Olympus is pretty accurate. The natural color profile is very accurate. Very subtle changes. Canon has a very interesting color palette. It's warmer than Nikon, but more on the yellowish side. I guess it's better for skin tones. And the greens are very rich. I don't know how to explain it, but when I've seen Canon colors, they're very pleasing as well. And then Fuji definitely has a shift to red and green. They push those 2 colors quite a bit, which makes sense because particularly with the X-Trans sensors, they have more red pixels than green and blue. So it's going to be more sensitive to red than any of the other colors. But it definitely pushes red more and a little bit of green. Then it pulls back the blues, and the contrast is a little bit softer. And like I said, these are very subtle differences. In a blind test, I would have a hard time picking out one manufacturer from another, right? But when I'm looking at the images on my computer on a color calibrated monitor, I can see the differences there directly. And because I know which camera I'm looking at, so I'm looking for very specific differences. But in a totally blind test, I would probably have a hard time, to be completely honest with you. I mean, I might get 2 out of 3 right, but I would have a hard time because sometimes I can tell. I'm much better at not so much color, but like lenses. If somebody tells me what lens was used, I can tell you probably the focal length they used to get that picture. I'm very sensitive to field of view, right? Because I do architectural photography. So when I see an image, I can say, yeah, they shot with a 200 millimeter. No, that was shot with a 15 millimeter, or that was shot with a 17. I mean, I can pretty much nail that within a couple of millimeters, but color, I would have a little harder time. partially because my eyes are not very good anyway. And let's see, there was a comment here. Yes, good menu system on the Olympus and real plus with the ISO button on the M1 Mark III. Can you now adjust shutter speed, or can now adjust shutter speed, f-stop, ISO without even popping? Yes, that is true. I mean, you could always do that with any of the Olympus cameras that have programmable buttons, but they're already labeled on the EM1 Mark III and defaulted that way. Olympus has really expanded their support, adding how-to videos, Q&A, yes. Putting time and money into it, a 45-day trial on their equipment. Wow, I haven't seen that yet, but that's cool. They're definitely, their actions are very, very positive, DeMorgan. I'm very, very happy with what I'm seeing so far. But again, it doesn't mean anything if they don't release a camera, you know. Oh my goodness, Rick is here. How you doing, Rick? I was about to email you because I haven't heard from you in a couple of months. I hope you're okay. Let me scroll back and see where Rick came in. Oh, you found she was straight and discovered her data. Oh, okay, okay. You're chatting. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to show that. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. When you can get up early enough. Yeah, I'm sorry about the timing. It's very random lately. Yeah, based on our discussions here, I may give DxO another shot indeed. Yeah, just try it. I mean, like I said, I'm going to try and do a video on it and address the areas that concerned me. Because you know me, I am cheap. I am poor. I don't have a lot of money to be dropping 90, 150 bucks, whatever I decide to spend on something that is not going to help a little, if any, on images where I don't care about noise to begin with. But when it does that good of a job, I'm now able to look at images that I just threw away because they were so bad that I'm like, you know, this is a good image now. You know, it's what are they? What's the word I'm looking for? Usable. It's usable now. I can use this and share it on Instagram. But you know, I've taken some images that are so bad I wouldn't even put them on Instagram, you know, because it's just terrible. But DxO Prime has saved a couple images because I tested it on my TG5 where I have some 12,800 ISO images, and I'm like, these are images that I never posted anywhere because they were just so bad. But now that DxO Prime did something to it, I'm like, this is actually good enough for me to share. And I'm very, very flexible when it comes to sharing images. I mean, I don't cherry pick my images to the point that I'm only going to show the very best that I have. I'm just going to say, I like this image. I'll share it with everybody. You know, I'm not trying to share, you know, these epic images because none of mine are really epic. They're nice. They're okay. You know, they're just kind of fun sometimes. Sometimes they're educational. Sometimes they're just, you know, me having breakfast, whatever. But anyhow, yeah, give it a shot. Always try if you have the time. I think it's worth everyone's time to download the free trial to DxO Prime. I think it's at least worth your time to try it. Like I said, a year ago, I would have said, don't even waste your time with it. But this year, I would say it's definitely worth your time to try it. And I'm definitely going to drop some money on it this week, most likely. I'm just still a little bit torn between $90 and $150 getting the whole package, or maybe going all the way with the film pack and everything. I don't know. You know, right now a tank of gas would cover the cost of DxO Prime, right? But $5. Thank you, Peter or Petra. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And followed me on Flickr. Very good. Yes, I have a Flickr account. I think the link is below. Yeah, right there. It's right over here. And I have a Flickr group now where, because like I said, a lot of you have gotten to know each other in the chat section, so you can share each other's images. So you need a Flickr account. You create your own Flickr account if you don't already have one. It's free. And you upload your images there, and then you can share them with the group. So you don't have to upload it twice. You just upload your own images to your own account and then just share them. It's a much better platform for photo enthusiasts like us, right? Instagram is kind of fun for getting likes and a few comments, but Flickr is really, if you're a photo enthusiast, it really is a much better platform for you to look at images and learn from them, in my opinion. And there's something about it. Sorry, I jibber jabbered too long, and I fell behind in chat again. Oh, Robert Welsh, welcome. Just got here. That's cool. Man, we got 85 people here. It's shocking. Oh, it's 2:09. Okay, we're good. I'll hang out for a few more minutes. Let's just say, how do you find the starter pack M50 and Nifty 50? I'm not familiar with the M50. I think that's the Canon system. I'm not that familiar with it. I think a 35 millimeter on the M50 would be the equivalent of 50 millimeter full frame, if that's the question you have about the Nifty 50. I don't know if they have a 35 millimeter lens or not, but 35 millimeters is the 50 millimeter equivalent, roughly. You're the best, Rob. Jeez, you're too kind. Thank you. Are DxO now go to the editing tool? I don't understand that question. I know DxO Photo Lab 4 is their photo editing suite that includes the denoising DxO Prime. But is it the best one out there? If that's the intent of the question, I would say no, it's not the best. The denoising is awesome, but for the photo editing side, the best software is the one that works best for you, just like cameras. Most software is very competent these days. Even the free ones like Darktable, Raw Therapy are very popular. They're very good photo editing software that's free. But that DxO Prime and a lot of the features in Photolab 4 are nice if you're really into editing, and I think it might be worth spending the money at that point. But it's hard for me to call anything the best, you know, when it comes to software and gear. You know, the best is a very relative subjective term. When somebody says this is the best, a lot of YouTube videos, including a lot of my own, you know, our titles are the best of this or the best that. And that's simply it's basically clickbait, right? Like, I think my videos might be like the best first lens for beginners. And I recommended the 45 millimeter. The 25 millimeter was a very close second, but I went on to elaborate why I thought the 45 was the very best first choice for your lens. But I did not say it was the best lens ever, right, of all lenses. But I thought it was the best first lens to get, assuming you already had the 14 to 42 and 40 to 150 kit. Because the first thing I say in that video is, you have the 14 to 42. If you don't have the 40 to 150 yet, that's the first lens you should get, not the 45 millimeter. But most people already have those two lenses because they got it when they bought the camera. So I said the best first prime lens you should get is the 45, and I explained that video. Another video I have that says best is like the best settings for your camera. And again, it's from a beginner's perspective, right? Because a lot of people don't have no idea where to start. But I don't know what else to call it other than settings for beginners. Who's going to click on that? But if I say best settings for beginners, it's likely to get more clicks, right? So it's more of a clickbaity kind of term on YouTube than it is anything else. So you'll find a lot of us, like Peter and Jimmy and Robin, we use the word best sometimes, but you'll see more often than not that we say more settings or, you know, how-tos, things like that are better titles. Not as catchy, but some, you know, we try to diversify and not look, you know, like if you look at like a lot of channels on YouTube, their thumbnails and their titles are so clickbaity. And to some extent, it's legit. You know, you click on it and they deliver exactly what you're expecting. But a lot of times, you know, it's pure clickbait, you know, and they throw out some wild opinion or wild review or something that, anyway, that's all I got to say about that. I don't even know why I got onto that tirade or rant, I should say. Why don't Fuji make a 0.65 crop factor medium format camera? I thought they did. I don't know what the crop factor is on their current medium format cameras or large format cameras. I thought it was 0.65. But if it's not 0.65, oh, what would be the rationale for that? I think is your question, right? What is that camera called? The X100? TFX100, right? Crop factor. Let's see what it is now. TFX crop factor. .79. All right. Well, I mean, the short answer is it'd be really expensive and much bigger camera than it is now. I mean, for every millimeter of height and width that you add to the sensor, it adds exponentially to the cost of making that camera. And then it adds exponentially to the cost of designing lenses for that. And then it adds to, I think in a linear way, it adds size and weight to the camera system. So that's the short answer, in my opinion, is they're trying to balance the cost of building the camera for the final sale to the consumer. They're trying to balance the performance at different sizes to the cost. And then, you know, because if they came out with a 0.65 factor camera, instead of $10,000, it might cost $20,000. And how much are you really gaining from a 0.79 to 0.65? Probably not that much, not $10,000 worth. And I'm just pulling numbers out my butt. I mean, I don't really know how much more a camera that was 0.79 factor versus 0.65 factor would cost. But you can sort of correlate that to, you know, you have to look at the cost of making the sensors themselves, because they get put onto a platter and then they cut them out. And then there's, you know, so you might be able to get 400 micro four thirds sensors out of a single platter. Whereas if you put full frame sensors on there, you might only get about 30 sensors off that. And if you put medium format size sensors on that platter, you might only get 7 or 8 medium format sensors on the same platter that costs the same amount. And then there's the defect rate of these sensors, once they burn them in on the platters, you know, there's going to be a certain percentage of them that are bad. And the larger the sensor, the higher the percentage, you're going to have a defect rate, hence the higher the cost of the sensor itself. So, I mean, that's kind of a long answer to why larger sensors, just those cameras are inherently more expensive to the manufacturing process. And that would be my guess, is they were balancing sensor size with cost. And your name's Aditya. Okay, Aditya. Awesome. And Robert Welsh says, I asked this earlier, but which is the best lens for photographing classic cars in an outside environment, 45 prime or the 40 to 150? If you're talking about the 40 to 150 Pro lens, that's the better lens. If you're talking about the 40 to 150 lens, the kit, the $99 one, then my question would be, how much space is in between each car? Because if you want to isolate the car from other cars, it's easier to do with a longer focal length because you can kind of compress the scene and not get other cars in the image because of the longer focal length. If the cars have plenty of space between them, the 45 millimeter is going to be a better lens. It's going to be sharper, give you better depth of field, you know, so you can separate the subject of the car from the background a little better, because you don't have control over lighting or anything that. So since you don't have control over lighting, your only choice to do subject separation at this point is depth of field, right? Since you can't control the lighting or the color. The 45 is going to be better for that if the cars have enough room. But if they're very tightly packed, like I've seen a lot of car shows, and I haven't gone to a lot, but I've seen a lot, and the cars are right next to each other. In that case, I think a longer focal length would be better if you can stand back and you can isolate that car a little better. And if it's the 40 to 150 Pro lens, definitely get that over the 45 all day long. But if you're talking about the kit lens, then my question is, you know, about the arrangement of the vehicles, if that makes sense. Okay, System Natura, we will see you later. Thanks for stopping in. And primes versus zoom, any thoughts on image quality? No, I think if you're talking about pro zooms, pro level zooms, excellent image quality across the zoom range. If you're talking about the primes versus zooms at similar price points, again, it's very close. But the difference being is that the zoom lenses will be much slower, meaning you're going to get like an f4 or an f5.6 in a zoom lens, whereas in a prime, you're going to be at f1.8. So rather than image quality at this point, the main difference is going to be in the aperture. You can shoot at higher shutter speeds, at lower ISOs with a prime lens, which may be more beneficial to you than the flexibility of a zoom, right? When you go to a pro level zoom, like an f2.8 zoom, most likely you're better off with the pro zoom lens if you don't mind the size and weight. If you have pro, and most of the pro glass are all zooms anyway. You know, there's 17 prime, 45 prime. Well, so I take that back. There's a good balance of pro primes and pro zooms. And in that lineup, again, there's only about a one-stop difference between the pro zooms and the pro primes. I would just go with the zooms. But on the lower levels, you know, like kit lens zoom versus prime, I would say the bigger difference is really in the aperture than it is the image quality. The primes will always be sharper. They're always going to be better. But you know, at that price point, the convenience factor of a zoom might be better for you. So you have to give some thought. I mean, ultimately, it's best to have a couple of kit zooms like the 14 to 42 and the 40 to 150. You know, you get those usually with the camera, then you buy 2 or 3 primes, you know, the Trinity 17, 25, and 45, those 3 lenses. And then you have pretty much, you got everything covered. Unless you want to start going into pro glass. But so yeah, so there's not really a correct right or wrong answer to that. It's you really need it all. If you're going to expand your photography beyond just the kit lenses, you eventually have to get some primes. You don't have to, but if you really want to expand your photography, getting some primes will get you there. Whereas you'll never quite get there with just kit lenses, zoom kit lenses. But it can take a long time before you need a prime lens. You might be very content with the kit lenses for a long time. It just depends. And David says, I prefer 14 millimeter or wider for cars. Yes. Yeah, if I had to shoot, well, you know, I went out to the truck graveyard with a 50 millimeter lens, and I was pretty content with that. So shooting wide, it's all different. You know, you can shoot wide, but then you get, when you're shooting wide, if you want to isolate the car, you have to get pretty close, and then you start to get that wide angle distortion, which, you know, with cars is sometimes very pleasing. It looks cool if you get this wide angle distortion. Yeah, it all depends ultimately. Okay, yeah. You're welcome, Robert. I'm glad that made sense. Anybody with a Panasonic G9, can you get your photos off at Wi-Fi? Oh, I don't know. I don't have one. But Music Sound Gear is asking if anyone has an answer for him. And we take images and they become our children. We feel I have to give them a home. Yeah. Nigel says, hi, Olympus 12 millimeter f2 or Panasonic 7 to 14. Does this Panasonic has good use for street? Ooh, you know, I would get the 7 to 14 Panasonic. You just have to be careful with the purple flaring. So in that sense, I would go with the 12 millimeter. If purple flaring wasn't an issue, the 7 to 14 would be a better choice. And I think for 80% of the images, that purple flaring is not going to become an issue. But there's 20% of the time, you know, and I'm talking about shooting randomly, you know, randomly in the street, you're going to run into purple flaring. That's a problem. But, you know, for street photography, it may not be a big deal. Who cares? You know, a little flaring here and there. I would say the 7 to 14 is a better choice. I have a problem with the 7 to 14 from Panasonic because of the purple flaring for my professional work. It's a problem that, you know, just, it's a problem. I had to work around it the best I can, but there's times when I missed it. And then I got the image and it's just almost unusable without a lot of work with a little paintbrush in Photoshop trying to fix the purple flaring. But for street photography, casual stuff, yeah, it's fine. Just be aware that probably 20% of the time you're going to have purple flaring, but it maybe even kind of neat in a street photo. So yeah, I would get the 7 to 14, and it's a small light lens. It's not very big. I mean, the 12 millimeter is smaller, but 7 to 14 is pretty reasonable. I think it's less than 300 grams. Challenge for me. Actually, Miser 43 as your prime target for this year. Bit mean as it is, winter object, and on the other hand, you can practice a bit. Oh. I'm a little confused. I think you're talking about astrophotography, right? Miser 43 is a galaxy. Let me look it up. Miser 43. Ooh, it's a nebula. Also known as the Marians Nebula. This one here. Huh. Kind of caught me off guard there a little bit, but I know you're into astrophotography, so that's why it didn't take me long to figure out you're not talking about the M43 mount or lens. You're talking about galaxy or nebula in this case. Yeah, I'm going to work with Ben a little bit more after in June, late June, maybe July, and then when we get into the fall, and do some more stuff. Right now, I'm just I'm in this photo processing mode, photo editing mode right now. Oh, it looks like I missed something from Ed Johnson. Let me see. Ed says G9 can connect to PC via Wi-Fi. Not Ed, EJ. I'm sorry. EJ said that. And not my Messier. Yeah, Messier. I'm sorry, the Messier. Messier is the name of the guy that developed the system, right? I forget the guy's first name, but Messier was the guy that's why everything is called M this, M that. And David says, yes, we need to do some astro. I chatted with a gentleman who did a Milky Way at Blackwater Park. Oh, yeah, that's a nice park. Blackwater Park is a nice place. And it's not a super dark area, but it's not bad. I think it's a Bortle 5 or 6. So it's definitely better than where I live now. And you live, right? We live right around DC, which is like a Bortle 9 or 10 or Bortle Infinity. You can't see jack. Every time I look out the side, I can't tell if it's cloudy or if it's a clear night. I have to walk all the way out into my yard and really look. And then I'll see a few twinkling stars, and I'm like, okay, are there clouds out right now or not? Even if I see twinkling stars, I'm still not 100% sure that if there's clouds. It's just the light pollution is so bad here. But okay, I think I'm going to call it here. So thanks everybody for coming in today. I really appreciate your time and spending it with me. Hopefully I was able to help all of you, but it's always great to hear from a lot of you because I learn a lot as much from you guys as hopefully you get from me. But either way, thanks for watching today, and I'll see you again at least next week Sunday. But I'm going to try and do a photo editing on Wednesday if I'm ready for that part. So thanks again for being here, and we'll see you again soon. I still have trouble ending this thing. Where's my end screen? Is it